All right. Well, good evening to all that have logged on and who have attended the virtual town hall on Clean City Conversations. This is an important topic that we will be addressing today, talking about how to keep our city clean here in the city of South Fulton. I am Councilwoman Gomes. I am the representative for District 2. However, this conversation is for all of our districts. So we have brought in the experts of how we are addressing them, and we are hoping that we'll be able to answer your questions and your concerns regarding litter, illegal dumping, and trash and debris. So this will be kind of like a more fluid and engaging conversation. I'll let the directors that are here introduce themselves. We'll talk about ways that these various departments are addressing the litter and trash concerns that we have in the city. And also we have the police here as well, who will also be sharing what they are doing and what they would like to see. And if you have questions while we are doing this particular live stream, you're more than welcome to email Brandon.Eads, E-A-D-S, at the City of South Fulton, ga.gov, and he will get those questions and we can ask our experts that are on the panel. So I am gonna start to my right, and I need for you all to introduce yourselves.
Good evening, City of South Fulton. It's my pleasure to be here along with Councilwoman Gomes on District 2, as he stated, providing these services for the entire City of South Fulton, all the 7 districts of the city. My name is Antonio Valenzuela. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of South Fulton.
Awesome.
Good evening. My name is Gordon Burkett. I'm Solid Waste Coordinator for the City of South Fulton. We're responsible for the residential collections program. I'm glad to be here with you.
Greetings, my name is Paul Muhammad, and I'm the Interim Director for Code Enforcement for the City of South Fulton, and I would like to thank you, Councilwoman Gomes, for putting this together. It is definitely needed in the community.
Awesome, awesome. And to my left?
My name is Corporal Elliott with the City of South Fulton Police Department, assigned to the Park Ranger Unit.
All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. So this is one of our newest additions to our police department, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, welcome. All right, so again, we are going to start these conversations. Again, we are really trying to improve our city. We have been a city for about 6 years, and you will possibly know, if you are very familiar with our council, is that they are very active about litter and making sure that we have a clean city. So I'm gonna start all the way to my far right, and we're gonna talk with code enforcement.
All right.
We're gonna talk about what's really happening with litter, trash, and debris. I can say that riding through the district and coming here, we saw a lot of election signs. It is election season, and I know our previous election, we had some issues with those signs ending up in drains and blocking a lot of our, I guess the whatever. But at the same time, can you share where these signs are supposed to be placed? I know that we have some ordinances. What is the format for them to be removed, and just overall about signage in our right of ways?
All right, so the signs should be 10 feet from any right of way. And usually we measure from the inside of the curb. Or if it's not a curb, we'll measure it from the edge of the street. If there's 2 right of ways, like an intersection, then it has to be 20 feet from that intersection. Now here's a caveat. So this election season, most of the candidates were asked to only put their signs on private property. But there's some misunderstandings about the right of way as it relates to private property. And it's usually, if you got utility poles and things like that, or public signs, that's the right of way. So your yard, you might have a yard, but your yard still has a public right of way or easement. And so that sign cannot be in that right of way in your yard as well. We, as code enforcement, can pull that sign. And what we've been doing this election season is keeping them and allowing the politicians and the candidates to come and retrieve the signage. And any one sign should not be no more than 10 feet from one right of way, 20 feet from 2 right of ways. And you cannot fasten the sign on a pole, fence, or anything else like that. And then the larger your sign gets, you need a permit. If you wanna put up a big permanent sign, cause some people will put up a big old permanent sign, and it might even be blocking traffic and causing hazards to the community. So you need a permit to put up that sign, and then they get upset with code enforcement because we tell them what they can't do. But if they would've gotten a permit, they would've known what they could and could not do. So signage has been a big issue. It's not as much of an issue since the ordinance have changed. But I think that the candidates just need to be more conscious of the right-of-way that exists on private property as opposed to just the right-of-way in general.
Awesome. Yeah, the signs, they definitely can be very cute and, a way to brand yourself, but they also do a lot of damage within the city if they end up in the wrong location. Also too, do we have, for the districts, do you have assigned code enforcement officers for each district? I've heard that
Yes, we have.
quite some time.
We have approximately 12 officers, and each officer is assigned to a particular district. In some cases, they may have overlapping district. We have 2 of our officers here today, and Officer Rose, she's in your district, which is District 2, and Officer Hall, I forget what district, she's 4, District 4, which is Sebastian,
Okay.
Councilman Sebastian. So we have an officer that's patrolling daily. Now, the thing is, it's such a large territory. So sometimes people say code enforcement ain't doing this, but it's so much territory to cover. We may not catch everything. The main thing we're looking for is egregious stuff first and foremost. So we're gonna attack the egregious stuff first because that's what people wanna see first when they ride through the thoroughfares of the city. So we attack that, and then we get complaints that come in through SeeClickFix, and we get emails, we get bombarded with emails. So we will ask the public, please use SeeClickFix.com. Because it's a project management system, for lack of a better word, that allow us to track progress and allow the citizens to track what's going on. But if we get bombarded with emails and phone calls, something's gonna get lost through the cracks. It's just the nature of an email. So we just ask that you please use the system, and we promise you, we'll get to it. Our officers are very thorough, and they on top of it.
So while we're talking about SeeClickFix, Mr. Valenzuela, what is SeeClickFix, and who's actually looking at it and monitoring it?
SeeClickFix is a tool that allows residents to report any, to me, immediate items that needs attention, such as perhaps you may see a pothole, you may see that a stop sign has dropped down, or there's an accident and the signal went down, or perhaps sometimes the signs goes dark, and so on. So it's a way to very quickly document an action and to ensure that that goes straight to the expert that's gonna put a resolution to that request. So while we encourage using the SeeClickFix, it's the best thing for us, so we can document it the next day or the same day, making sure that it is handled in a timely manner.
So it's actually somebody looking at SeeClickFix, and not going out to cyberspace when somebody puts in a request, right?
No, we have personnel that are within their 8 hours of work, just constantly looking at those reports.
Okay.
Our managers looked at even at night sometimes, which is, it's their kindness, so that the work orders are attached and assigned the next day of work.
Okay, awesome. All right, so if a resident sees litter all in the right of way, riding through their neighborhoods, who should they call? I'm gonna ask, Mr. Muhammad, who should they call?
If it's in the right of way?
If it's in the right of way, so I'm riding down, New Hope Road, and I see a bunch of paper, trash, and litter on the side. Who do they call? Or report and see?
They usually report it to us, mostly code enforcement. But if it's in the right of way, it's more Public Works. But we'll take it and then we'll send it to Public Works, because we work together, so we're not just in the business of passing the potato around. So.
All right, well, so that was a good question. And the reason why I asked that is because a lot of residents don't know who to report. They just think, oh, well, code enforcement is going to be the one. But if you see trash and litter and debris in the right of way, it's usually public works, right?
That's
So the difference between code enforcement and police, can you share that really quickly?
Okay, so we are considered the property police. We don't have guns. Police got guns and arresting power. We don't arrest nobody. But anything related to the property is us. Anything on the street is traffic. It's a traffic violation. So we get calls, there's cars parked on my street all day long, a box truck parked in the middle of the street. Well, that's a traffic violation, not a code violation. So that's the distinction between PD and code enforcement.
Thank you for that, because that has always been a big hot topic. So moving on to Mr. Burkett. Sanitation has been a really, really big topic in the city of South Fulton. As many of the residents know, we've moved to, we're not supposed to call it a sole source, is it? Or just
I'd say single
a
provider.
single provider, which is Waste Pro, that has been operating since, I believe, the end of June, middle of
June 1st.
June 1st. So share with us a little bit about the program and what do you see, because it was important for a lot of the council members to move in this direction. We had about maybe 9 or so independent providers that were servicing our residents with fluctuating prices, not being accountable, missing services. So now we've gone to this one provider. Share with us how these past, June has, how many months has that been? About 90 days?
We're in our 4th month.
We're in our 4th month. What has that been like for our residents?
Well, in the beginning, it was a little bumpy, but with anything that you affect 40,000 households, there are gonna be some bumps along the way. Our focus has always been customer service to make sure that, we're treating our residents with respect, and that we're handling their business, appropriately. So, we've made a lot of inroads as it relates to that. But really, this is a key component of the cleanliness of the community. So our meeting tonight is about maintaining and keeping a clean, attractive community. When we did not have a single provider, when we had multiple providers, they had multiple service days. You could go into a community and it would be containers out 3, 4, 5 days out of the week because nobody really quite knew, especially code enforcement, when they were trying to enforce our ordinances, they couldn't tell what day a certain vendor would be in that neighborhood. Today, that same subdivision is one provider. They're 1 day a week, and they know that now. So the rest of the week, those containers are properly placed, or code enforcement will
We'll come see you.
we'll come see them, knock on their door, educate them on the new approach. So that's one of the keys, but also containerization. What we found, even though we had the
Is that a word you just made up?
What?
Containerization?
containerization, no, it's a technical word for our industry.
Okay.
It's a key to what we do, because without containerization, we have material, that's what becomes litter, okay, when it becomes loose. So that's one of the key processes as well. One of the things that we suffered from in the city of South Fulton, where a lot of people, even though they were required to have service, they didn't. And as a consequence, everybody generates garbage, okay? Most people I know have an Amazon account, okay? So somebody's coming and everybody eats something, so they're gonna come home with material that needs to be properly disposed of. But when you don't have garbage service, that material goes somewhere. And a lot of times that ended up being a code enforcement issue.
Absolutely.
People put it in their backyards, they left it on a corner lot that was vacant or something like that, and we had to deal with it. Or Mr. Valenzuela had to send a crew out there because it becomes illegal dumping. So that's a key piece of it. And then, basically a uniform look and feel. A lot of people, one of the biggest things that came out of this process was people realized that they live in the city of South Fulton. They didn't know. But when your day of service comes, you see that can out there, now it makes sense. Now that connectedness is there. So we're very happy about that. And then the service has gotten much better as well.
Much better, yes. All right, so I was attending a HOA meeting, last night, and there were some questions that were asked. So this thing about our trash cans are not the same, or they're small trash cans. Can you really speak to the trash can issue?
Sure.
Like, talk about that.
So, I guess this is one of those factoids we can put out there. Our cans are actually made in Lawrenceville, Georgia, at a facility that also makes the same containers for GFL. So the molds that they use for GFL containers are the exact same molds that they use for our containers, the same exact size. So there's no design difference, it's even the same model.
Okay.
So the only difference is the color.
Alright. So now we know about that. So one other question is accountability. So, you know, we have this situation with bulk trash day. Some of the residents are putting their bulk trash out on the curb. And sometimes that provider actually just comes and just pick up the trash because it's not, I guess, scheduled. So, you know, it kind of leaves not a nasty look, but just a cluttered look in the community because they don't know. So let's talk about bulk trash pickup. Have we kind of fine-tuned that? And how are we holding our single provider accountable? Because there has been, you know, some spillage or, you know, juice that may ride through the neighborhood. So I'm getting some concerns about that. But just how are we holding them accountable? What is the city doing to hold the sanitation provider accountable?
Okay, well, first, I'm glad that you asked both those questions. We'll deal with bulk trash day first. So everyone throughout the city receives bulk service one day a month. Actually, 1 week out of the month, it really is. It starts on the Monday of that week and then it goes through the end of the week. You do not have to call for that service. Eventually, it will be picked up. Now, where we ask for people to do this, especially, there are sensitive homeowners associations and others about material being out. When you call in or you make that request online to the provider, that makes you the priority. So you will be picked up on that Monday, but it also makes your community that priority as well. So if your neighbor puts out, even if they don't call and you do, you will both be picked up on that day. Now, each route, so this is what the provider does as well. So they drive the entire service day. So we have 5 service days in the city of South Fulton, Monday through Friday. So Monday service day, their bulk day is all the same day. Same thing with Tuesday service. So they'll ride that for that entire week. It's about 200 miles worth of road. So will they pick your stuff up? Absolutely, they will. Will it be Monday? If you don't call, it could be, but it may not be because you're not necessarily the priority. When you call or make that request online, though, that makes you the priority, which means that you'll be picked up on Monday. Now, as it relates to juice and that material, there's 2 types of liquid that come out of the trucks. One is hydraulic fluid, which is normally in the summertime, and then what we call in the business garbage juice, for lack of a better word. That leaks out and it stains the asphalt in our community. On our website, you can actually put a request in and we'll come and clean that up. That's part of our agreement as well.
Okay.
So they have a special crew and that's all they do. It's a 2-step process. They'll come down and put the first application down and then they wait a couple of days and then they come back out. I'm actually going out tomorrow to do some inspections on what we call garbage juice and the removal of that. So that's something that's ongoing. We average about 4 spills per month right now.
Okay.
But if they make that request through our website or they call us and let us know, we'll send the crew out typically by the next service day.
So is that any resident or do you prefer the HOA presidents to call? Is any
We just
resident?
want to know where it is.
Okay.
And so we can go out there and address it aggressively.
All right, awesome. So now we know about the garbage juice, and what to do. So there's a plethora of information on the city's website, regarding sanitation, how to get an extra bin, also too, what to do about the garbage juice. So I do encourage residents to, go to the website.
Yeah.
One of the
My-
things.
I'm sorry, my supervisor wanted to make sure I was clear on who to call to. So,
Okay.
we have a general phone number, it is the 470-552-4311, and you just hit 1, and that actually takes you directly to our provider, which is Waste Pro, and they'll log it in our system. Our system's a little different than, C-Click Fix. It's called Track Ease, but it's a contractual thing, so that's what we hold them accountable for, what's in that system. So once it's logged in there, the resident can do it themselves, or they can call that phone number, 470-552-4311, and log it themselves.
Okay, I can't repeat that number, I don't know.
It's all over our website.
But it's on the website,
Just
the
going to
number's on
repeat
the.
a bit
You want me to say
slower.
it again?
A bit
Okay.
slower so they can.
I'm sorry, 470-552-4311, and that's on our website as well.
Now, the city has a call, we have a call center, right?
And
to
that's the number
address-
for the call center as
Okay,
well.
so that is the number to, address the call center. One other question, so when trash is left out on the street, so if there's a bulk trash miss or whatever, what do you suggest residents do? Leave it there, or bring it back, or, because what I'm seeing is that if a bulk trash is missed, then they just leave it on the curb and it just looks horrible in the community.
Well, again, one of the reasons why we went, and this was something actually from council, you're concerned about how our neighborhoods look. That's why it's such an important thing for us to make sure that we provide an option to address quickly. So I would always encourage, again, so that same phone number, and Mr. Mohammed's actually posted, because all of his materials have the same phone number on it as well.
Okay.
The 470-552-4311. You can call that number, or again, if you go to our website, you can make that report, and we'll come out and take care of it. Even if it's missed after your day of service, our vendor is very aggressive about making sure that these things are taken care of quickly. This program is really all about protecting the quality of life in our community, and that's a core value that we are gonna sustain through this program. So
I agree.
we're gonna make it happen.
I agree, and I really am trying to look forward to our city getting that green city designation that is across Georgia. I think we're on our way for that. So, Mr. Valenzuela, guess what? We have illegal dumping because we've closed Merck Miles. You got that question, the Merck Miles question. So, tell us what the current status is on Merck Miles. And do we see it opening anytime soon?
I believe so. It's just in the process of procurement, in which, by the guidelines on procurement, we can't discuss that much. But it is going to evaluations, and we're hoping that we're aiming at October, second council in October, to provide who will be operating Merck Miles. And definitely going to be a much better system. That's our anticipation. And we'll be making additions, upgrades to the center as well. And there will be more things coming out for the city.
Okay, perfect. So you hear, Merck Miles will soon be reopening. It is a asset to our city, but I think we will be able to manage it a lot better once we get through, this new procurement, and then, we have an actual, provider that
That's
we're
right.
evaluating. So with that being said, when there is illegal dumping, when you have contractors or people just riding through and dropping furniture off, what should residents do, and how are you handling that as well?
Well, it's one of the things that, we want to keep the city of South Fulton as beautiful and clean as possible. So we work with the community. We want them to be more proactive. I think we're working with PD and code enforcement to install cameras at certain locations, because we know that as engineers and other traits that we have in public works, we want to provide the best services and not just picking up litter or picking up illegal dumping that others do it on their own. But with this new system that we have 4 months already with solid waste, hopefully reopening Merck Miles and so on, and more eyes on the roads and working with our residents as a team. We hope that illegal dumping will be minimized and we can catch those people that they don't have anything better to do. Unfortunately, in many cases, what we observe are not necessarily residents, are minor contractors that do construction work, that do cleanup for residents, so they pick up those things out and they don't dispose properly. So if you contract them, you wanna make sure that they also, do not trash what they're picking up from a resident on our local roads. They need to go to a transfer station and be properly disposed. But how do we pick up those things? It's reported through Sickly Fix and day-to-day, daily activities. Our project managers have to send out our gravel trucks. It's a bigger piece of equipment. It's a slow process because it's bigger and it has to be picked up very slowly to ensure that it's safer for the driver, the employees, as well as the traffic, because we're going with the traffic. And we pick those up sometimes in tons, huge quantities of illegal dumping. But we're doing that in-house. We're doing that in-house.
So where does it go? So just like I was riding on Merck Miles, Merck, and there was a couch. And, you know, I sent the email, I didn't use C-Click Fix. But where do you pick that debris up and then where do you take it? Like, where does it go?
As we're growing, you know, we have a solid waste division as well. So we're consolidating where we dispose those things. So the grubber truck is a huge truck, about 7 tons of capacity. Then once it's full, we go back to the transfer station and we dispose of the transfer station. We have proper contracts with them, we dispose those out.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. So I'm moving over to our police, our new recruit. So there has been, we as a council have strengthened the anti-littering laws here, and that's something that I had championed because we were really trying to figure out how do we stop people, or I think what you make change by hitting them in their pockets, or however the case may be. But we did increase the fines for, you know, littering if you are caught. And that's another thing that I would have to say is that we've attempted to, we've had residents that will go through the trash, try to get, you know, mail, or try to identify items that may lead to say that this is the person that did the illegal dumping. However, what we found out is that if you're not actually caught in the physical act of doing that, then they are not able to pretty much prosecute or move forward with a citation. So what are your thoughts on that? And if, you know, I know you're a new recruit here in the city, but I know you've experienced, but what are your thoughts about that piece of it? Because I want residents to stop digging in the trash and trying to get names and phone numbers when we cannot actually do anything about it.
So I would recommend the residents to, just call us, continue to keep a paper trail on the dumping. The more they call us about it, I'm pretty sure the more the detectives will get on it, self-surveillance, and eventually catch whoever's doing it.
Yeah, we are in the process, again, as Mr. Valenzuela has shared, we are putting up cameras in those hot spots. So hopefully that will actually help. But I had residents, even just last night, talking about they go through the trash and they want us they're feeling like the city is not doing anything. They'll call code enforcement, they'll send all of these emails after they have spent all their days with their dishwashing gloves trying to pull stuff out of the trash. And honestly, it's nothing that we can actually do unless, you know, someone sees it. Now, I do understand that in one particular subdivision that a resident was able to confirm that they saw, you know, a resident do something and they were actually able to go back or get a fine or get a warning. So I think you have to be willing to say if you see someone actually dispose of items, then, you know, I guess that's how you all will be able to prosecute if you're actually able to, or have a witness, right?
Understand.
Do you know if the police department are giving citations or tickets for litter? Have y'all seen any issues that where kids may be throwing litter? Well, I don't want you to find kids or anything, but you know.
So typically what'll happen is, a lot during the day, if code enforcement is available, we'll just send a call with the code enforcement to handle it. For instances where, we catch illegal dumping overnight, what'll happen is we have the authority to go ahead and write out the citation. If we see it firsthand, I mean, depending on the situation, sometimes we can go ahead and
And
do the
process that.
process and go the whole route as far as arresting them, taking them to jail, but a lot of times we can go ahead and just issue the citation.
Well, I think the cameras will help us a lot. I know there's a program that I'm trying to get the city to get on board with. It's not that easy. It's kind of like a snitching program where you're gonna, you know, not necessarily tell on people, but there might be an incentive if you do see, you know, your neighbors or whoever dumping, because again, it's important for us to, you know, have a clean city. So, do you all have anything that you can share? Yes.
I would like to add to that about the dumping. Code enforcement, we've been very successful in citing and people that are doing illegal dumping.
Okay.
There's a thing in law called probable cause and reasonable doubt. So you gotta have the two. Probable cause is enough to get them in court. We find a male, then we gotta have reasonable doubt to get a conviction. And a lot of times they'll confess to it. So just going through that process, oftentimes they'll be like, yeah, you know, out of fear. And we get a lot of success doing it.
Okay, so similar to like first 48 hours or something like that, you all just kind of make them pretty much
And if
confess.
9 times out of 10, if you got several boxes that's got your Amazon box with your name on it and a piece of mail,
Joshua Ponder.
that's you.
Austin down event no longer active for Joshua
See,
Ponder.
what can you say if I find 3 Amazon boxes with your name on it and a piece of mail? What you really gonna say? I only recall one incident where that didn't add up to the person. What happened, an elderly woman's car was stolen, and as they were driving, they pushed all her stuff in the car out in the middle of the street. And so us, along with PD, we got the mail and traced it back to her, but it was a situation.
Okay, yeah, I can see that, but we have had, people where we've gone to their home and be like, oh, this is your piece of mail. He was like, oh, my son did that, you know, so it's always something to where, you know, they're gonna deny it, but we may have to use that, that technique you use in the first 48-hour technique. Brandon, do we have any questions from any of the,
No, we
residents?
don't have any questions, but I have questions.
Oh,
If that's okay.
okay, that's fine. You wanna get the mic?
Do I need a mic?
You may.
Yeah, just
Alright. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So, just to clarify, I'm speaking as a resident right now. So going back to the litter, for the police officer, when you see, cars that's driving down, like if you happen to be behind a car and they just throw a bag of chicken wings out of the car and throw it into the street or right away, is that probable cause to go ahead and write a citation?
Yes, it is, but a lot of, I don't wanna say a lot. We have something that's called officer discretion. For me, I try to use it when feasible, but a lot of times in that situation, I wouldn't, because you know better, you know what I'm saying? So you're gonna get the citation every time, for me, but in other officers may be different, but yes, that's enough to go ahead and do the citation, but it's up to that officer's discretion.
Gotcha. Alright, this is going to, code enforcement. Mr. Muhammad, could you please like clarify the difference again, like, you know, cause I have, like me myself, I have a lot of difficulty understanding the difference between what is considered, police in a matter that, deals with illegal dumping and how does code enforcement get involved?
Well, if I saw somebody saw them dumping, right, I'm not gonna chase them. The police gonna chase them and pull a gun on them.
No.
I might say something, hey, stop, you know, and try to approach them, but if they run, I'm not chasing them. That's not what we do. So that's the difference in that regard. But I can look through, I'm not gonna dig through the mail, but if I do see something that identifies that person, I can go after that person based on that. But it's just a different approach. They deal with the criminal side of that aspect, So they might hunt them down. They might do a bounty hunt type situation, whereas code is not.
Well, I hope not that they would have to do a bounty, for that, but just to kind of give the distinction again, and I think this was probably the easiest way that I could, really understand the difference between code and police, is that code really deals with what's on the property, and the police really deals with what's on the street. So that was and I think that's probably the easiest way for residents to digest it, because again, before I even got in office, I was always calling code when I should have been calling police. But that is the way that, you know the difference on it. What's on the property is code, what's in the street is the police.
Thank you for that. I have a lot of questions.
I see.
So, the next question is like dealing with the illegal dumping pickup. So we understand that there's a lot of illegal dumping that happens in our community, but with the C-Click fix, what is the timeline to really get the illegal dumping picked up once it's received? And this is for Mr. Valenzuela.
Well, that's a good question, and we want to pick that up the next day possible. But it varies because we might have safety issues that particular day, and if there are potholes that need to be repaired, and signals that need to be repaired, signs that need to be repaired. So anything that's a safety issue for us is that we try to resolve within 48 hours the most. But if there are not calls related to safety issues, then illegal dumping will be scheduled as we receive. We might have one, so we can handle very quickly. Might be just a sulfide that it is there, but sometimes we pick up in tons. So it takes major effort, not just one truck and one person out.
Got you. So, moral of the story is make sure you use C-Click Fix instead of calling your council person.
Yes, sir, yes. We want to make sure that, all is documented, allow our employees to read the reports, to download, allow them to schedule their daily routine activities so that we can be more efficient. If we receive, I receive over 500 emails a day. And it's almost impossible to do my field visits and respond to everybody. But we at Public Works, we have our logo is pretty much to provide customer service. No matter what it is, we are here to provide the best customer services. And I know that together with our employees, council and the residents of City of South Fulton, we can make a difference.
Absolutely. We're committed to making a difference. Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So this goes back to the shopping litter ordinance that was just recently passed. How are you all dealing with, and I guess we can all talk, all three, commercial property within the city of South Fulton? How are we addressing the litter and trash that is in these shopping centers? And what are we doing for sanitation and, again, the response time?
Well, if I may, we will handle it the same way we do residential. If it's trash all over the parking lot, we're gonna cite that owner. A lot of times it's one owner for that entire plaza, but we'll cite that, and then he has a tenant and it's happening at his tenant's location, we'll still cite the owner and have that owner put the pressure on that particular tenant. But we do understand that places where there's high traffic, you're gonna have a lot more trash. And we're not policing somebody drops an alley, the paper code shows up. We're not doing it like that. It's usually gonna stand out and somebody's gonna call us, or we might randomly be riding by. And then sometimes you get people dumping in that receptacle that goes with that particular business. So you get around Valentine's Day or whatever, people go out there digging in the trash, looking for the leftovers and things like that, but they also dump in their trash in, say, Family Dollar's trash can. So we get a lot of that, and we go after that the same way we go after residents.
Okay. And are they exempt from the sanitation program, Mr. Burkett?
So, we have actually two programs within our program. So we have what's the residential service, which is the small containers with the wheels on the bottom, and then we have commercial service. Both groups are required. So, you know, McDonald's to individual households are all required in the city of South Fulton to have solid waste service.
Okay. And the response time is still the same as well, that if a resident sees, you know, an abundance of trash in these strip shopping centers, that they'll still report it through C-Fix and you all will address it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
And if, I might just add up to those areas, you know, and we're working together. And what we have observed in Public Works is that, at shopping centers, especially when you have a cluster of fast food places, you know, then just 50, 100 to 200 feet outside that shopping center, you can see all kind of disposal elements that residents consume. I don't necessarily want to call a specific business, but you can see a line of all kind of papers and utensils and others. So for us, you know, how can we do things different? I think perhaps adding more receptacles inside the shopping center would be a solution, so that residents still, you consume at a particular location, you're walking, and before you exit that shopping center, you still dispose that stuff and not on the streets.
Okay. One other thing too is, the street sweeper. Where is the street sweeper? Does it go through subdivisions? I'm getting phone calls about this street sweeper. I think we took a picture with it, groundbreaking, but they're like, where is it? So, how do we utilize the street sweeper?
The city of South Fulton has two street sweepers, and we got two dedicated staff that all they do is drive the street sweepers. Now, we got to have into consideration that now and then, those street sweepers have to go for maintenance and so on. We need to exchange certain things, but they do operate in an average from 8 o'clock, 8:30, 8 o'clock to about 2:30, 3 o'clock, 2:45. Because you got to maintain, you got to clean up the sweeper every day. It goes back to the shop, it's maintained, it's flushed out and so on. But in essence, street sweepers are done for the purpose of maintaining our inlets clean. So any non-subdivision roads that we have in the throughout the city of South Fulton, which have curb and gutter, are swept. And there's a routine, and the purpose is to maintain our waters clean. So we're in compliance with MS4.
Okay.
We will perhaps like to do it inside subdivisions, but I don't think, I think us, as living in our subdivisions and HOAs, have to be responsible and not being able to wait for somebody else to clean what is in front of our house. But non-subdivision roads that it's over 200 miles, yeah, all our street sweepers are right into it, but only for roads that have curb and gutter.
So we have a lot of subdivisions in the city of South Fulton. So are you saying that the street sweeper currently at this time does not go through subdivisions, but it could go through subdivisions? What are you saying?
It will, if one day that when I propose that it should go through subdivisions, honestly, sanitation is having issues, because the vehicles are just parked right there and so on.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll have multiple issues then. It's a bigger piece of equipment, we'll probably knock some mailboxes and others, and the streets are smaller, shorter, and there's tons of it, we need the space to turn around and so on. It will be a major investment.
Okay.
It will be a major investment for equipment, personnel, and all the logistic issues that we'll have.
So we need some time to really iron out the kinks. Okay.
Definitely.
Plus, you would need a new rule to tell everybody on this day, park on this side of the street. You've been in communities where you can't park on a certain side of the street, that's because the street sweeper coming through.
So yeah, I'm from New York, so I definitely know how that works.
Councilwoman, and then, like, you know, just speaking of, you know, the parking, you all passed legislation to enforce parking this past Tuesday.
Yes, we did, so we'll talk about that, we'll probably have a town hall on the parking legislation, so that may help, you know. with
Yeah,
that.
we appreciate that, because that's actually, in solid waste collection, that's our number one issue, is access, especially on cul-de-sacs. We have a lot of challenges with, parking, that doesn't allow the truck to go through.
So let me ask you a question, that brings up another situation, on trash day, and if there are cars parked in front of a street, so like a roofing company, or, you know, somebody's getting some work done to their home and they're unable to access the trash on that street, does the provider go back, or do they just miss the trash for that particular day?
So normally our practice is to go out the next business day. So the two issues with that normally are low-hanging wires, and then cars parked on the road. And that happens once or twice a week. And normally if that happens on a Wednesday, service day, we'll be back out there that Thursday, unless we have, if it's a utility issue like a low-hanging wire, we typically wait for them to let us know that they've completed the work. But that's normally our protocol. Everybody still needs to get service, even if we're having trouble accessing your street.
So while you were talking about wires, and I know it's not really litter, but it looks tacky, you know, when the wires are hanging, and trees are leaning onto these wires, what can we do to get, I guess, the utility companies to respond faster? Because it creates a bigger problem with that tree, you know, eventually just hanging on the wire, or when the next storm is gonna come, the power will be off. What can we do to activate these utility companies to actually, and are we finding them? Because also another instance is that we have utility companies that are contractors, where when they're cutting down some of the limbs, they're dumping the mulch on, you know, private property. So how are we addressing that, Mr. Muhammad?
Well, they could face fines up to $1,000 a day. And I think we're gonna push that more, the fining. But I think what needs to happen is having a direct contact. A lot of times when you call those utility companies, you gotta press 2, press 5, just to get to nobody at the end of it. Or them to say, oh, we're gonna schedule it 2 months out or 30 days. So the time frame that they talking about even coming to deal with the situation is way out. So we need more of a direct contact with the people, because we've cited some recently and we've had to go to their offices and cite them directly. You know, a lot of times it's like a registered agent office or something like that. So we just need to get to the meat and potatoes of who we need to directly deal with all of them.
Okay.
So that when it happens, we go directly to the source and we don't have to go through all the red tape. Because we went through a lot of red tape on one recently just to find out who it was. And it wasn't properly labeled. Their stuff needs to be properly labeled. I went inside the subdivision just to see, oh, that box is the same as that box, and that box is labeled, so I know who it belongs to now, and then we was able to go after them.
Gotcha. What about the, and this is, it's not litter, it's litter, but it's trees. So a lot of people, when the trees fall down, they're still left in the right of way. How are we addressing that? Because, you know, sometimes you have to move over a little bit because you still see some of the logs that are out in the street. And it does give our community a not so clean.
We cite
look.
them. When we see it, it's considered a failed tree or something, or tree debris, we cite them, just like we would do with trash, but it's just a different ordinance for it.
Okay, so what if it's our city that actually has done the cutting of the tree? So I guess this might be to Public Works. Do we just leave the trees there and let them fall back into the existence? How do we get rid of that?
You know, those are heavy pieces of trunks of trees and so on. We chop those off and we remove out of the right of way. If it's outside the right of way, we work with code enforcement. We figure out where did the tree came from. It came from private property and it's leaning and was dumped into our rights of way. See, we are responsible and still liable because it is within the rights of way. We pick those up and the other part, we inform them that they need to remove.
Okay.
But when the tree falls, the amount of trash, not trash, the leaves and branches that falls in the right of way, it's huge.
There's a lot of it.
It's a lot of them, so We all as residents have to be more conscientious about the branches and trees. My tree's right there, it's about to fall. It's time to trim it. And there are companies that's their expertise, that's what they do. And I think if you don't allow it to grow that high or that fast, we'll be better served. But if it's just too big for years and nobody has treated, all the trees are within our rights of way.
So the trees that hang on the wire, right, and if the power gets cut off, it's a bad storm, and then we go and we cut the tree up, and then it still remains in the right of way. Do we try to look for the person that owns that parcel, for them to come and remove those logs? Cause those are huge logs,
Yeah,
and it
they
looks
are.
terrible, so what do we need to do as a council to address that, picking up those logs? Because, we had a bad tornado, and I think, especially in this particular area, was hit pretty hard.
That's right.
And a lot of those trees are still down on the ground.
Yeah, it's very, not easy situation, because for once, if a tree falls on the power lines, we can't touch it until the power company has actually disconnected or cut that tree out of the power line, and then becomes our issue, because the tree falls within the right of way. And we do everything we can to remove out of the right of way. But since half of the tree is in private property and the other one sticking out into some of the right of way, we can't literally get into private property. But that becomes a situation that goes back to code enforcement to
Right.
enforce back on that.
I think one remedy for that is maybe, get some equipment for the city for special situations. One of the things we did, say a tornado hits someone's home, and then somebody called code enforcement, and then we show up, and that person it's really a hardship at that point, because it could be an elderly, one time I had an elderly, family that the tree fell, and this was a massive tree that was uprooted at the roots. And so we having to deal with, okay, we still gotta do some degree of enforcement, but we gotta work with them at the same time. They on a fixed income, they can't remove the tree, so we got a major situation here. So even if we cited them, took them to court, hit them with a fine, now you compounded it, right? And the issue still exists. So we have a mantra that we say is compliance over enforcement. We'd rather get compliance over having to enforce it. So if we can get compliance, then it works better for the city. Otherwise, you can take someone to court, fine them, and guess what? That code violation is still there.
So I think that speaks to, the Code Cares program, because again, we can find resources for seniors to kind of get some of this stuff addressed. I think my main thing is, and I'm thinking about legislation to, how fast can these utility companies address the trees that are hanging on the wire? Do we give them 10 days before we start finding them? Because again, that impacts if another storm comes and we're using city resources to go out to address it, or if the tree falls, we have to cut it, get it out of the right of way, and using, staff and things of that nature. And it's also dangerous for residents that could be riding through, and it just sits over a period of time where it's just leaning on the wires. So I'm thinking about, and I don't know if I'm right about it, but maybe possibly doing some legislation, Mr. Valenzuela will give me later. But it's just trying to find a way to address that in the logs, in the.
We need
So
a
something that we're doing at Public Works is also, we got better with permits. We hope that this year, we're gonna acquire a new software where we're gonna be monitoring permits and the issues.
Okay,
So, and also we're gonna add one more personnel that should help us out with the utility permits and issues that creates it. In many instances, when those utility companies are not acting properly or reacting in a timely manner, we're holding up permits,
okay.
or we have to stop permits. But that only requires additional staff and other tools that our staff needs to do it. So, but I think we're getting better. And also, we acquired a piece of equipment before this year's budget that's gonna help us out to trim the trees better.
Okay.
So it's gonna help us out. We got 2 extended tractors with extended arms that helps out to trim those trees. But granted, it's a slow process, right? So it takes a bit of time, you have to do your traffic control, make sure it's all safe before and after while you're trimming those trees and so on. But definitely, you know, we got to work better with our, those power companies that have, their job is to trim the branches before it touches power.
So, we do have some questions from the viewers, but did you have something else you wanted to add to that?
I was just gonna add to that, some kind of emergency injunction when it's a situation like you mentioned. Because even when we write something up, say we go straight to citation, it's still a process to get them to court. It's still gonna take time to get them to court and your problems still exist.
Well, we'll definitely look at it because to me, it's just not a pristine community riding through and seeing all the trees hanging on the wires or those big logs in the right of way. And they could become dangerous. So I'm gonna go to Brandon. Did you have anything you wanted to share? Okay, good. All right. Brandon?
Okay, so we do have a few questions from the viewers that's watching online on YouTube. So one question is it, and this may be a question for you, Councilwoman, is it possible to get cameras in the parks to catch trash dumping and pet abandonment?
Well, we actually have, and in this year's budget, we do have it to where cameras will be actually installed in our parks. So we are moving that legislation forward, and I do believe that the access from what's happening from those camera footage will be sent to the police. So that will also assist with us addressing the dumping and the trash that's happening within the parks and any type of illegal activity and things of that nature.
Okay, so similar question, back to you, Councilwoman. When will the hours of parks be enforced to keep them clean? Foot traffic can't be stopped, but vehicle traffic can. And it will decrease litter and trash. Could you talk a little bit about that?
So when are the park hours going to be enforced?
I think I can answer that question. So, in reference to the park hours, I am assigned to the park ranger unit. It's kind of like a double-edged sword because when we were locking the parks at a certain time, we were getting complaints. Now we're not locking the parks because we was getting so many complaints. So, yeah, we can try. Well, I don't say we can try. It's only about 6 of us right now, so we try to do our best with being as visible in our parks as we can. If we see it, obviously, first step is make contact, educate, then go ahead and move to the citations. But in reference to the vehicle traffic, we do what we can, but a lot of that has changed since we don't lock the parks anymore.
So, I'm sorry, Councilwoman, why isn't the parks being closed right now?
Well, there are a lot of activities that are happening in the park, such as, the kids are practicing, even late at night, they are doing their little pee-wee league football. There are a lot of activities that require, being open for the kids to practice. So that is one of the things. We do have quite a bit of people that take advantage of the parks still being open extra hours because these leagues are practicing. So that's the main thing. I even asked that question a couple of days ago because I'm like, why are these kids still out? But they're actually practicing the football leagues and things of that nature. So I do believe that once there is that activity is not happening, then the parks will probably end up being a little bit more secure and closed. But that's why they're open a little bit later than normal.
Okay. So the next question is, can the city place litter cams along numerous areas throughout South Fulton that stand about 2 feet above the ground to snap photos of people littering?
Well, we haven't actually looked at what type of cameras we will be using, but we will be placing them in strategic locations. We cannot identify where those locations will be because, of course, that information will be leaked out to the public and it will do us a disservice. But we will look in, and once we find out what type of camera we'll use, I'm pretty sure we'll share that with the public. But if they have suggestions of where we should place cameras, they're more than welcome to email our office and provide us those, and we'll look at them and see what we can do.
Got you.
And this is for across all of the city.
All right, and I think Mr. Valenzuela has answered this question already, but I'll say it for the record. Street sweepers should be utilized by all HOA communities to clean these falling leaves during the fall season on the streets.
He said
It's-
that?
Well, he explained why
Oh, okay.
street sweepers are not in HOA communities,
Okay.
but this would prevent drains from clogging.
That's correct.
All right, so this next question is, who is responsible for maintaining the storm drain in the rear of residents' properties?
Well, Public Works is responsible, and the city, not just Public Works, is responsible for maintaining the infrastructure. So a pipe that goes up to the discharge point when you collect water and so on, and then from that point, it's an open, sometimes it's an open drainage system that eventually gotta go to a creek and so on. So it is the residents' responsibility to maintain those easements. We maintain the infrastructure. If the pipe fails, if the culvert fails, if it requires additional riprap at the outlets of those culverts and so on, we'll maintain.
Cool. So, we believe in transparency here in the city of South Fulton. Councilwoman Gumbs sponsored legislation that speaks to transparency. So I knew this question was gonna pop up eventually for Mr. Burkett. Are we going to talk about the double bill and the trash service? And I'm assuming this is for the mortgage companies.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So, one of the things that we've done through the solid waste program was to, basically charge a fee for that service, which is $233.16. The vendor that we use to contract, to collect that on our behalf is the tax commissioner, Fulton County Tax Commissioner, Dr. Ferdinand's office. As we've gone through this process, we found that lenders and escrow companies, once they have looked at this information, which is general information, they can find this on the internet, that they found that as of a certain date, that invoice is still out there, that they've gone ahead and made that payment on behalf of the owner of the property. That is part of an agreement between the lender and that homeowner. It's one of those items, if you've ever purchased a home, you signed 30 different invoices or applications at that time when you're doing close. That's typically one of those things that you've signed. You've given them the opportunity to make that decision on your behalf. Okay? So the good news is when that happens to you, the tax commissioner's policy is to make that refund to the homeowner. Okay? So even if your lender made that payment, that will come back to you, because ultimately you're paying for it. What we're also doing is encouraging people to have that conversation with their escrow or their lender to make sure that going forward, even if that's what they would like them to do, that's what happens. But also you have the option in most cases to make that change so it doesn't happen again. Some people decide to pay their taxes and insurance and other things on their own, but a lot of lenders make that requirement, especially early in the loans. If you change that, they typically require you to establish some sort of line in the sand, essentially. It's kind of like PMI. Once you make, a certain number of payments, that can go away. It's the same with escrow.
So just to be clear, if you have not paid the $233 and the mortgage company has paid the $233, do you just let it sit, or you call them and ask, like, how? Because again, if the resident hasn't paid, it's been paid by the mortgage company. So do they just let the mortgage company pay for it?
Again, that's up to
As a
the.
suggestion.
Yeah, again, that's up to the owner of the property. I would say the biggest deal is though, you never want to get a lien on your property if you don't have to, okay? And that's what the lender is stepping in, because they're trying to prevent anything from affecting the value of your home.
Okay.
But also they're protecting their investment. But I think it's always good to have that conversation, just so you know what to expect going forward with your relationship with that escrow company, so that these things don't surprise you in the future.
Okay, and we did, the city actually, you said, posted on social media, I think you might be doing a mail piece.
Yes.
For the FAQs about, sanitation and additional updates. So, you have any more questions?
Nope, that's it for the viewers.
All
But we do
right.
have audience and,
We do, I do see some beautiful faces. So, one quick question before we turn it over to those in the audience. Recycling. Recycling is big, it's been a hot topic, since the sanitation program has rolled out. As you all know, I'm sort of an environmentalist. I like to make sure that everything is green and clean, and we're recycling, in the city of South Fulton. What are we doing to, I guess, create more awareness of recycling? Cause that also helps us with, building a green, clean city. And I don't know, I think all of you all, because we wanna kind of push something across the board in the city when we're talking about recycling. What is code enforcement doing about recycling as well as sanitation? And maybe even public works?
Well,
Who wants to go
I
first?
can go first.
we can talk about,
Talk about this every day.
with Gordon so many times. And then, while we don't have, the services at this point for the city, but we wanna, perhaps once, Merck Mile is open, we wanna make it available for our citizens to be more friendly, and then you can drop it off all your recycling stuff. And perhaps you have other type of services, monthly or quarterly, just for specific areas, which will be not too much of a burden for staff or others, so, but it should be just a quick ride. You get in, drop your stuff, you don't have to be standing on lines and so on. That kind of stuff that I think is coming up for us.
So I personally am very excited about the reopening of Merck Miles. I know my supervisor here is getting a little nervous when I talk about this place, but one of the things that we've definitely encouraged in our process is to expand our recycling program. That's a critical function of that facility going forward. And really, the city of South Fulton is home to a number of large institutions that do this for a living, nationally. So we're gonna bring those on board as well at that facility. And we still are going to continue to do some additional bulk item and recycling events, including in your district, ma'am.
Yes.
And that will be something we do, as well as look for another location, most likely on the southern part of town, to promote and recycling and recycling education.
Love it, love it.
Well, once the plastic bag issue is resolved, whether or not we're gonna we'll be the body of individuals that go around to the stores to make sure that they're not using plastic.
Well, recyclable plastic, I mean,
Recyclable.
yeah, that's the big thing, because a lot of people, they lose their mind when you say no plastic. So it's just explaining how we really want to make sure that we educate. I think you all have done, an educational piece on
Yes,
it
you
as
did.
well as the legislation. And the city has won awards and things of that nature, so we just gotta keep people continuing to be in the mindset of start to smart thinking, smart green thinking. So hopefully we'll continue to move forward with that legislation.
And real quickly, Councilman, my apologies, but, fiscal year 2024, code enforcement is getting an environmental code enforcement officer.
Yes, they are. So if there are, environmental codes and things that we can address, that'll come out of your office. So that's exciting. So now to those that are here in the audience, did you have a question?
I do, I have actually a few questions.
Would
So-
you like to stand up or would you like the mic?
No, my mouth is big.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull out the ones that are most important. So let's start with panhandlers. How are we handling panhandlers? Because that's a big problem that creates trash. Of course, they there panhandling, so as people give them food, bags of food or what have you, generally they take it and they toss it on the ground, so when they leave, now you're stuck with a plethora of trash. How are we handling that, even when we're driving? Because I know the patrol force are driving through the city, well, when they see that, you know, I see some panhandlers just made certain corners their home.
All right, so the question is panhandlers, so that would be police and code enforcement. Let's start with police. How are we addressing panhandlers in the city of South Fulton?
So generally, the process is we make contact, we do something that's called a field contact on them, then identify who they are, let them know they can't panhandle at the corner, and depending on if they're on the street or on private property, we'll just go ahead and issue a trespass, so they don't come back. And if that's the case, if they do come back, we'll go ahead and
You go
prosecute.
what?
Now, we do have a panhandling ordinance in the city of South Fulton. So please let us know what locations you are seeing that they really, I haven't seen it too much, but if you are seeing it in certain locations, please share that with the police so we can actually start monitoring those locations. Did you wanna add anything, Mr.
Yeah,
Muhammad?
what we normally would do in a situation like that, if we see that it's a problem, we will put pressure on the property owner. Because typically, they're hanging out at stores, you know, around those areas. But if they're on the street, then it would be a PD issue. But if they're causing problems to that particular store, we'll get on the store to kind of, you know, get rid of them in a sense.
And there shouldn't be no loitering, we got a no loitering
Yeah, we
ordinance
push.
as well, so.
We did some enforcement on that too, to make sure that the stores that we were enforcing had those signage up for no loitering.
Okay, what's your next question?
So, on those two areas, starting with the loitering, are we finding the plazas or the store, the businesses within the plazas for loitering that's occurring on their section of the property? Who's getting fined?
They will get fined
Is that the plaza, the
The plaza,
landlord,
yes,
or
ma'am.
okay.
for the plaza.
And then, is there, I know, you said something earlier about fines and the process, that it takes a while to get to court, or is this truly
Well,
just a citation?
Allow me to explain the process. So what we come out, say you report high grass and weeds. So we come out, we see that there's high grass and weeds, we issue a notice of violation. We give that resident time to cure the matter. We go do a re-inspection. On our re-inspection, if there's still high grass and weeds or junk vehicles, now, at that stage, we prepare a case for court. We have two courts. We have a municipal court and we have what's called a code board, which is a board of individuals where you can get fines and liens and different things like that. Our municipal court, you can face probation or jail time or warrants and things like that. So based on the situation is how we determine where it's gonna go. But we're giving them due process by giving them that time to cure the situation. And then we do what's called a pre-court. Right before we go to court, we do another inspection to see, they may have come into compliance by the time they go to court. And what happens at that time, they may get a reduced fine.
So if we as residents or business owners of the city drive and we see weeds and high grass, et cetera, or trash on business property, we will call in the, I think it's a
C-Click Fix.
C-
And we have flyers up here, so you can get some of our material and you'll have that hard information that you can go to C-Click Fix and the phone number that you can call to report that.
And what's generally the turnaround time for the city to then begin to work or acknowledge that call?
Well, that's the beauty of C-Click Fix, because you will know, if you put in that complaint, you'll know when that officer acknowledges it, you'll know when it's in progress, and you'll know when it's closed. And typically, when they close it, they're saying, hey, we've opened a case on this situation, and then we'll go back before it goes to court and say, now it's going to court. We'll give you the case number, so if you want to do an open records request, you can do an open records request, so you can follow that case. That's the beauty of C-Click Fix, you can follow it from beginning to end. Turnaround time, our officers, every morning, that's one of their first duties is to check C-Click Fix and go handle those situations.
I have a question really quickly. I know, something about being anonymous, if you're making a complaint in C-Click Fix, is that still
That's still
available?
Yes, you can
Okay.
be anonymous. Yeah, we can't tell someone, oh, your neighbor is the one that called in on it.
Okay, I know that has always been a concern. All right,
I just have two more.
all right.
Leave it alone. with the community, how are we engaging the community to also take part, whether it's, residents, just to help, because I know sometimes I'll see certain neighbors that go out, they'll start picking up trash, just to try to take to their part. But are we as a city trying to, invite engagement? Because I've heard other community residents say, hey, how can I help? And just giving, information of how they can help to keep the city clean, because many want the city clean than those that do not.
Well, I do know that, a lot of us do, cleanups. So we as council members will go around, and definitely in District 1, in District 2, we do a lot of neighborhood cleanups. So we'll get residents who wanna volunteer, to actually come and help. Public Works has been pretty good, because I think we all, when we do these type of cleanups, we kind of bring in all of the departments, so they'll give us the pickers, they'll also give us the vests, we'll, deploy police if we need to, have them direct traffic. So we overall want the community to be clean, and we want residents to know that we're actually there to help them as well. So when they kind of initiate these cleanups, we're trying to be a resource as well, because we appreciate it. So, that's something that's happening. I think we've also gone to some of the schools. I know we've tried coloring campaigns, building, cleanup mascots. It is a process. But I do like what East Point is doing, where they're doing, what is it, I think it's a clean community award, where if it's certain neighborhoods or subdivisions, and they have these immaculate, communities, maybe we can give them an award. So something like that, but.
But in addition to what Councilwoman Gomes stated, the city has a program which is called Adopt a Road, where communities can apply for that program, and they just have to sign different documents to ensure that they will become liable for their services, while the city will provide vests, pickers, and bags for you to use. And with the commitment that you will do at least once a quarter, some do once a month, and there is certain things that you got to let us know. And typically, if you're gonna be on your cycle to pick up that particular road, and as a response back to you, when you commit that program, we will put a little plate with your name or your association or whoever's gonna do the pickup for adopt a road. So you have a plate right there, and then you work with us, and you indicate to us that you're gonna be picking up this weekend, and then staff on Monday morning will pick up all the bags that you picked up. We only require from you to let us know the bags. We got 10 bags that were dropped at this location. Monday morning, first time, staff goes direct to right there and picks up those bags.
Yeah, so the Adopt a Road program, we're actually, I think, doing a town hall next month in regards to how we can get more organizations to sign up to adopt a road. It's a marketing tool, a lot of Greeks, a lot of different organizations actually do it in the city of South Fulton, so we just need more.
And we, if I may, code enforcement, we have what's called Yard of the Month. So whatever yard of the month we've identified that's been really nice at keeping the yard, we'll honor them in code enforcement. We have our co-cares program for our elderly. You have to apply for it. So if we have one of our seniors who have code violations and they just can't do it themselves, and we'll pick one and we'll go and clean up their yard and cut the grass and pick up sticks and things like that. So we'll be looking for volunteers to help in that effort. We also have something called HOA Collab, where we're starting to now go to the different subdivisions. We got one coming up. I don't have the exact date with me, but we have one coming up where we'll go into that subdivision and meet with the HOA just to educate them. We always say education before citation. So that's what we want to do. We want to do more outreach, more education. We have power of compliance, where we're going to have all the departments coming in next month so that you can come ask more questions, and we'll be going to all the districts doing it.
And the last one was more just, I guess, a question, comment about the parks. Is it possible that we can continue to have the parks locked at a certain hour, and for those schools or programs that need the parks after hours would just follow a protocol to submit what have you, just it keeps order within the city. Is that a possibility?
I definitely agree. I do know that they do actually go back and lock up, but I don't know if there's a specific time, because I think our parks are open from 8 to dusk, I believe.
It's from, dusk to dawn. But let me reiterate, so they stop us from locking them. I'm sure
The staff does.
Park and Recs lock them, but they just stopped us from locking them, because we used to lock them, prior to Dustin. Well, we just locked them, we never opened them, but we used to lock them prior to, dusk, to prevent the loitering, the illegal activity, trash and all that, but due to the complaints, they just prefer the staff to lock and unlock them.
So let me be clear, the parks are not unsecure, so they will lock up. There is staff that actually opens them up in the morning and then actually close them, but they just been open a little bit longer lately because of the groups that have been playing on the parks. And we've had some vandalism on our parks as well, so we are moving to try to see how we can actually secure our parks a little bit more as well. So, but that's a good suggestion. Definitely, can you email that to me, and I'll make sure it gets to the park ranger and the chief as well. All right, any more questions? All right, yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Mabel Martin, and I live in District 1. I'm off of Wallace Road in Woodside Hills, and I'm here to give a shout out to your code enforcement, because they handle a very good problem for me in my subdivision. And I want you to know how much you are appreciated.
Thank you.
And I want you to know how much I appreciate you. I'm not in your district, but I try to make your meetings because I am curious to know what's going on in my city. I've been here 31 years, and I try to make as many meetings as I can. Tony knows me. He worked with me for 5 years to get the stop signs on Wallace Road. I appreciate that. We got the lights around the stop signs. I appreciate that. I want you to know how much you do for our city. All of you. Now, the only thing that I'm here to talk about, I appreciate all that you do along Camerton Road. The grass looks great. The upkeep looks great. The only thing I want you to do is to cut the greenery back between Camp Creek and Wallace so we can see around that curve. Coming here, I almost got hit because I couldn't see around that curve. If you could just cut the greenery back, I would love you. And I appreciate all of you, because I think you all are doing a great job. I appreciate you.
What's the intersection again?
It's at Wallace Road in Camelton. You know, coming around that bend, it's a little bend there. We don't have any type of lights, and I
Right, that's correct.
to let you know we're trying to come out. And so you've got the greenery hanging over, so you gotta look around, and cars are coming, heading east. And if you're going west or east, you gotta really look for the cars, because the greenery is hanging over, so you can't see around.
We're gonna handle that section. It's not my style to throw anybody under the bus. I've never done it. It's just that sometimes the city has certain responsibilities and others do the same, but we push it out to whoever needs to handle that part. But when they slowly don't do it, we end up handling it. But when we handle for them continuously, then they expect us to do it for them, which is not right either. But it's on the work side.
I appreciate that.
When can we get it done? I'm with Ms. Mason. Can we get it done?
Before
I'm gonna
next
send you
Friday.
an email. Before next Friday, you heard me. Okay.
Council lady, I know you see my face all the time, 'cause
So he said before.
I
next
fight for my community, because Woodside Hills is 75% seniors. And we have to fight for us. We can't get out to go to our beautiful stores, our Starbucks up there, all of those, you know, because it's kind of a hassle right there. So any help that you can give us, I appreciate it.
Council, I think this was from PD. I got a question that was text to me, and it says, what is the city doing about a homeless population on Fulton Industrial?
And Cascade.
Uh-oh.
And Cascade?
Cascade by the Kroger, it's horrible looking over there.
Okay, so,
Oh, up there near 92.
Is that where the Publix
Cascade.
and the Dolce?
That's 285.
Yeah, that whole,
Yeah, 285.
over there is horrible.
Right before you get to Atlanta.
so, the major actually sent us a list of resources we can provide. Now granted, it's due to, depending on what day it is, how busy we are, we can't offer the courtesy right there, but they did provide us with a spreadsheet of homeless shelters, places we can call for them in reference to them seeking shelter.
So it is on your radar, pretty much, you all.
Yes, we do have the spreadsheet, they send it to everybody.
Okay. Any other questions?
I
One last.
got one more, sorry, Councilman, sorry, so sorry. For information and educational purposes, can you advise who is responsible for cleaning retention ponds in subdivision? I know Mr. Valenzuela is exhausted of this question, but.
One more time.
Definitely, I was sending a message before I forget that I have committed for next Friday.
Okay, thank you.
But going back to detention ponds, it is typical that a detention pound is maintained by the HOAs. We all pay fees to the HOAs. It's a common area, and they're supposed to be maintained by HOAs. Nowhere else, anybody else does it. Then the city will have to do it. Eventually, we'll have to pass the fees to somebody else. So it is a huge item that needs to be handled. But our code enforcement will also be, they arrive for those detention ponds. If they're not maintained, they go back to the HOAs and start penalizing them. We have about 33 detention ponds that have not been, that used to be maintained by Fulton County. And they're trying to pass to the city of South Fulton. Unfortunately, it's not on the city to maintain. So I don't know how we're gonna resolve that, but it will follow on the HOAs.
Okay, so the HOAs are responsible for the detention ponds. One last question, well, actually it's kind of twofold. The signs in the right of way. We talked about the election signs, but let's talk about the roofing signs, the education, tutoring signs, all of those signs that clutter up our community. And I understand, I'm I'm an advocate for small businesses, but I don't like the placement of the signs. And residents are going and pulling up signs. First of all, is that allowed where they're actually can remove a sign such as a roofing sign out of the right of way? And if it's continued, I know once we take down the signs, not me, but once the city takes down the roofing signs are all over, they come right back and put them back up. So what are you doing about those repeat offenders, or how do you handle that?
We have a STEAM team that specifically go after those offenders. We have, I won't say the name, but we have one particular one that saturates the city, and now they've passed a rule that they can't put up no signs in the city of South Fulton, or they will be issued a warrant. Because they were looking at it like the cost of doing business. Like, okay, I'm getting a lot of business from this, so what if I get fined? Because it's like a marketing fee for them. So that's how they're looking at it. And we're not having no mercy on them when we find that they're habitual. Someone who don't know, okay, we'll pull the sign and throw them away. As soon as we see them, we pull them and we throw them away. And if we keep seeing them, we're gonna have our STEAM team target them to get them and get some.
Now, is it illegal for a resident to remove an illegal sign out of the right of way?
I'm not sure on that one.
Oh, okay.
If it's illegal or not, I mean, it's illegal for it to be where it's at already. So somebody moving it, they helping us, so we won't.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
We won't bother them.
Okay, all right.
May I ask one more question?
Sure.
I know I tried to reach out to Tony Thornton with MARTA. Is there someone on the team with you guys who connects with MARTA to ensure that MARTA is doing their part to keep the bus stops clean? Because the bus stops are also a problem.
We do.
Right, let me help you out with those. Every bus stop that has trash cans and all that, they actually have a different company that provides those services for them. So on the trash cans, they have a little number for you to call. If you have an issue right there, just call that number. And then it will not go to MARTA, but it will go to the contractor that is supposed to clean up those trash cans.
And we, as code enforcement, we will enforce it just like anything else, any other trash that we see. So we always, when we see something, we go look for the responsible party, and that's where we apply pressure.
For our city, do you require MARTA to have a trash can at every bus stop? Because there are some bus stops that don't even have a trash can.
I don't think there's any city ordinance right now that requires them to have that at the bus stops, but it's not something that we are opposed to looking at. That may be something that'll help us. So I'll talk to some of my colleagues and see what we can come up with.
And Councilwoman, I just want to take a moment to recognize Ms. Stan Kemp. She is actually the one who organized this meeting for our community.
Oh, it was nice to meet you, and thank you.
Very
Thank
good.
you. This is what community engagement is about, to, really bring residents and the government together so we can talk about issues and ways to improve our community. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having it. Thank you, Brandon, for listening.
No problem.
All right. Well, if there are no further questions, I will let these individuals go home and enjoy dinner and their families. I do thank you all who have shown up here today and those that are viewing online. Again, we appreciate all of the engagement, and please stay tuned. We have an abundance of things that are continuing to come up. But if you have any additional questions on clean community conversations, please feel free to email the office. You can email me or you can email Brandon, and we will respond. So again, thank you so much, and have a great
Thank
and
you,
safe day and a clean day. Thanks. You're welcome.
Thank you.